Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi. I want to thank you for joining us today, as we hope you are joining us every single Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, as we go live here on LinkedIn. It's going out on YouTube as well. And listen, if you can't catch us live, we hope you can. If you can't catch live, catch the replay. Go to YouTube. It also comes out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so you can listen to it there if you're on the go. But bookmark your calendar for every Wednesday, because this is every week we are bringing you amazing, amazing people who are going to share their skill sets, their experiences, their stories of how they got to where they are. Because listen, there are gaps in your knowledge that you need to close up so you can succeed at the level you want. And we're at the second show of the year. I'm so excited. It's 2026, which I haven't given much thought to, because to me, the year is just a loop. I'm not a resolution guy, but so much has happened. In December, I released my first book. Just over the weekend, Steve, my buddy, gave his first TEDx talk down in Houston, Texas. I wasn't able to be there live, but the recording's going to be coming out, and I think in a couple of months. So listen, if you're not making moves, stop waiting. Get the move on and get to what you really need to do. Shoot high, aim high. That way, even if you miss it, you're going to end up higher than you thought you ever would have been before. And listen, if you can join us every week, but you got to hear from somebody, go to masterconnector.show and see the roster of people that we got coming up, because there's somebody going to be there. You're going to be like, I need to be there live for that person, because I learned a long time ago, you never leave a meeting without your question being asked and answered. It could be the thing that moves you past your stumbling block. So listen, we want you to connect with our guests. We want you to connect with us. This is the Master Connector Show. And we're all connectors here in our own unique way, but there's only one master connector. So we're going to bring him on, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Robbie G? Now, I noticed you talked about stumbling block, and then you mentioned me. So I don't know if that was on purpose, but yes.
We all got him, pal. We all got him.
No, I know. I'm only messing. But at one point, my sensei in the martial arts called me a blockhead. So definitely some block stuff going on there for sure. But I appreciate you, sir. Just messing. Thanks for it's exciting to have you have a book out, TEDx talk coming out soon. Hopefully, very, very exciting in 2026 for sure. But what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And welcome my sis Eileen, who is with me in Houston. She's here with us, and we appreciate you big time. Well, listen, here's a question for you guys. What happens when people stop being treated like resources and start being treated like humans? I could tell you, you're going to have some really good productivity. That's for sure. I remember I've, bounced in and out of the corporate world, and I had my own company and in advertising, and, at one point, manage people. And man, I'm so glad I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because I was a horrible, horrible manager. And yeah, I was more of a manager than a leader. I would say that. But yeah, in today's world, it's so important that, you treat people like humans. They're not just a number. They're not just a ROI or some kind of, there's KPIs to the people. Listen, we're people, and each one brings their own unique skills and talents. And, I might not be the best at spelling, and I've got this dyslexia and all this kind of stuff, and I switch things up. But for one thing, that I'm about people now, and I'm about, creating relationships these days, not back in the day, but these days. And so you want to see what the qualities and the strengths of the person that's on your team, and enhance those things. Don't try to, cookie cutter people. It just doesn't work. And, I also found that being able to allow people, empower them to do what they do best is incredibly important as well. I remember when I was I was at the marketing company, and I had this young lady named Beth, and she worked for me, and she was afraid to make mistakes. And I said to her, Beth, I want you to fail a little bit. I want you to, and not because I'm, mean or anything, because through that, if you make a mistake, so what? You learn from it. I know your heart is right. I know you're not trying to mess up for the sake of messing up. You can grow through these things. And so it's so important to really treat people with respect, value people, I mean, I've been, I've also had a lot of time in the business development world and sales, and so easy. It's like, as a sales professional, it's like it's not about what you've done, it's what you've done, what you just did, but what you're going to be doing. And again, it's all about that number. So I think the more that management leadership could really look at that, the better they're going to have with their team and with the people on their team specifically. And anyway, I am just stumbling through this particular topic because we have a true expert here that's going to really talk about that. And but before we get to that, I just want to have my man Robbie G bring him up. If you're ready for that, just type in "Let's go" in the comments. And appreciate you big time, bud.
Thanks. All right, let's go, everybody. Ethan Chazin is a people strategist and culture transformation coach. After 20 years spent in corporate America leading marketing, sales, product development, and communications, he launched his consulting practice in 2009. Ethan has been fortunate to work with amazing organizations by applying his passion for helping build strong reputational brands. Please welcome to the show, Ethan Chazin. What's up, Ethan?
Everything is phenomenal. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Steve, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to have you on. I know I was on your podcast, and it's not just because we're just trading being on each other's shows, but because we respect each other a lot, and there's incredible value here. And I think it's just an honor to have you on here with us, Ethan, for sure. So appreciate you big time. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, listen, so let's just dive right into it. I mean, this is going to be an incredible show. And for those who aren't necessarily in management, listen, don't worry about it, because you're gonna value here as well. So here's the question. The title of today's show is Putting the Humanity Back in Business. And what does that really look like today in the workplace? So community, type in #humanity, because we love your engagement. So just get in there and get in the comments and engage. And so humanity is in the comments. But yeah, so what does putting humanity back in business really look like in today's workplace, Ethan?
There is such a tremendous collective set of toxicity and dysfunction going around. I mean, I spent all of last year having not hundreds, but thousands of conversations with people who started up companies, entrepreneurs, founders, senior executives, people who worked in organizations. And there was just a singular set of feedback that I received, which I've taken into my own practice, which is fear, chaos, uncertainty, pain. And if you really go deep inside that and you ask, what does humanity look like in the world at work? It's a number of things. You can't say this is one thing, but I would share, because it's such a powerfully important question. It's being authentic in terms of who you are and meeting people where they are. And we're going to talk, you'll probably ask about emotional intelligence and effective communication, but it's being empathetic, right? And the distinction between empathy and sympathy, they're not the same. Sympathy is Rob is going through something and I'm trying to understand what that might be affecting his ability to work with me collaboratively, or I may report to him or he may report to me. Empathy is putting yourself into the situation of others. The single greatest challenge I face in my practice of bringing 5 generations of employee together on teams, people are so quick to stereotype based on generation or background or experience that they're making decisions about people before they get to know them. So you're doing 2 things simultaneously. You're being authentic about who you are and figuring out who you are. That's emotional intelligence, but also being there for the people you work with. And I could go on and on, but I'll stop in the interest of this being more conversational. But more than anything else, I'd say be sensitive of the people around you.
So I want to jump in there for a second, because you said one of my kind of hot button messages, and it's around fear. I mean, I wrote a book on it because fear, was the big part of my journey. And I know a lot of people have this. Mine was paralyzing. I mean, I couldn't talk to people into my 30s. I literally couldn't talk because the fear was so great. So when you say, you mentioned fear and you mentioned being authentic, like being the real you. Okay, so here's the question. How does a person overcoming the fear of being the real them? Do they know they're not being them? People are putting themselves in a different light online and at their company because they feel like they've got to fit some kind of mold that's being put before them. But few people have actually done that. They're just afraid to be themselves for whatever reason. Why is that? And what can they do?
No, Rob, I mean, that's a phenomenal question. And thank you, because that's, I think, in many regards, the question. And so it's interesting. There's been this lately in the business community, a backlash against being who you are, as Steve was kind of framing in the intro, right? Organizations are saying, you Gen Zs, you talk too much, you share too much, don't be your authentic self. This isn't, not everybody has to know your feelings. And it's fascinating to me because your question is so powerful. Being our authentic selves mean knowing who we are well enough to know our values, what's important to us, where we are in our careers, that we don't choose an organization whose values don't match ours. So the individual and the organization have to have a come together moment from a value construct standpoint. And I know if I'm the certain kind of individual who needs positive reinforcement, who needs an open culture, people who are leaders, as Steve said, not managers. If I want somebody who's going to care about me and my career and my professional development, I'm probably going to want to go work for a Ben & Jerry's or a Patagonia or Chef Jose Andres World Central Kitchen. I'm probably not going to go to a private equity firm or a hedge fund or a law firm.
Or a law firm. I was going to say that.
But I was going to ask you, what's the fear? So some people say the fear is being their authentic selves. But no, you go into an organization that has proven in their culture that they actively encourage that as a core value. That if that's important to you, you find the organization that offers that. And so you start to fit who you are with the organization. Because other than your relationship with your boss, the most important determining factor of your being treated with humanity is the culture of the organization. And then we have to talk about what culture is, because 99% of the people have no freaking idea what culture is.
Yeah, that's right. No doubt. Well, listen, there's so many good nuggets you just said there. And by the way, I want to just welcome Yolanda, the amazing Yolanda, to the show. She says, hello, Ethan. And just to appreciate you, Yolanda, being here, of course, as always. One of the things that I want to talk about, you mentioned authenticity. And what I think is missing sometimes in the business world is that piece of it. And I think people get a little confused. Okay, what does that mean? How can you be authentic? Well, listen, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to share your personal, I was accosted by my uncle assaulted as my uncle when I was 14. It doesn't have to be that. It could be like, listen, I know what you're going through, like in the sales world, a good sales manager, I hate using that word, but could say, listen, I know that getting out there and talking to people you're not comfortable with. When I was there, I was sweating bullets and just sharing some stories about how you were in their shoes and it would challenge you as well, and how you started to overcome them, instead of you should do this and you should do that, and listen, right? I think that's a way that you could be authentic, is just showing you mentioned a little bit that empathy, but maybe giving stories about yourself. Again, it doesn't have to be super personal. Right? What do you think about that, Ethan?
I love the idea of personalizing the interaction between people you work with. And it has nothing to do with organization, whether they're above, at, or below you, in or out of the organization. It has to do with meeting people where they are. And I keep coming back to that phrase because I'm a personality assessment certified coach, amongst other things. And so I spend a lot of time in organizations teaching individuals how to learn, as Rob was saying at the onset, about each other. So that if I know that Rob has anger, if I know that somebody's dyslexic, if I understand enough about you to know where your comfort zone is, or you're incredibly uncomfortable, to build the relationship first, I meet you where you're most comfortable. And You don't need an advanced degree. You don't need any certification in personality assessment coaching. You need to be a mensch. You need to understand that to conduct business with people. See, you talk a lot about sales, Steve, deservedly, because that's where your career is. I spent my career 20 years in banking and financial services, leading marketing organizations. So I supported sales. My understanding of relationships is you can be the person who wants the transaction, so you're always pushing the sale. Nobody wants to be sold to anymore. We learned this during COVID. People don't want to be told at AT&T, you 100,000 employees are going to start coming back into the office tomorrow. Figure out what I need and what I need as part of a team and part of an organization and deliver it.
Yeah.
And that's what authentic isn't being nice. Authentic isn't telling your story to everybody. Authentic is, and in the DISC world, the DISC personality assessment, we talk about when somebody feels incredibly uncomfortable at work, it's because who they are out of work, they don't believe that they can be that authentic to themselves when they go to work. So they're told you have to hide your true personality, your values, and fit in. And that's one of the biggest driving forces that leads people out of organizations. Authentic means you have to be true to who you are at work. And you have to work in an environment that embraces that and cultivates that. And that's just the way it is.
And I want to tie a couple of things together that both of you mentioned. So I pulled out two things out of the prior 10 minutes. That was empathy.
Yeah.
And that was the environment or the culture.
Yeah.
So one of my stories, I spent 25 years in corporate managing creative teams. And I was in a toxic boss environment at one point. And I learned from a guy like you, Ethan, years ago, who taught me a lot of what you're saying. And in that office environment, I was in charge. I was number two to the boss. And although I wasn't a direct supervisor to the other 39 people, I was in charge of kind of keeping them moving. That meant to me, if they had a personal problem, if they came in bad mood, somebody yelled at them, they're not feeling good, whatever it is, I told them, come into my office, let's talk. Because if they can't get it out of their head, they can't produce. And so I'm a pretty positive, optimistic person, and I want to keep people, in their best performing mode. So I did that. And my boss said, you're way too positive. You need to spend less time with the people. Just stop it. And and by the way, I used to get threatened of being fired at least twice a month by this person. The one time that she called me and said, I got to tell you something. I was coming back around to fire you again. This is the way she spoke. I was coming back around to fire you again. 3 separate people on staff, senior people, came to me separately without knowing each other, said, don't get rid of Rob. He's the thermostat in here. He keeps the morale and the mood up so people can keep working. She goes, I'm keeping you because of that. And it's not that I did something so great. I did something what you're talking about, Ethan, which is being human. But the environment, I went to a different job and it was a completely different environment where they actually applauded what I was doing. So are you saying, Ethan, that if you're that way, should you just change environments and everything magically works?
Nobody's going to just change environments. Let's be real. Let's have a real moment. Typically, any conversation I have been brought into in the last 17 years in my consulting practice that has to talk about culture transformation is driven by some negative outcome, where there's been a pain and they're responding to pain, not because of some altruistic, well, we should do it that way. And so what I mean by that is they're having trouble recruiting and retaining talent. They have a particular department like customer disservice where they're having like a 200 or 300% turnover rate every year. They have a lawsuit. So there's some kind of pain they're reacting to, which is pushing them into a conversation. Having said that, the biggest mistake you can think is our organization does not have a culture because fill in the blank. We're new, we're starting out. The minute you as an entrepreneur hire your second employee, congratulations, you have a culture. And so what I'm typically asked to do when I come in is to find the disconnects, meaning the relationship breaks. That's the first thing I'm typically brought in. My other issue is too many people who your old boss, when she talked to you like that, and that was her prevailing mindset, in many organizations, she still, unfortunately, is the decision maker, the power broker, who's dictating what the culture feels like. And you know what the beautiful thing is? As tens of thousands of boomers and matures leave the workforce every day, the two largest growing segments of our workforce are, drumroll, Gen Zs and millennials. They will not tolerate being talked to like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's typically when somebody says to me, we want to bring you in and redesign or think about quick fixes to change our culture. I love that because it's low-hanging fruit. It doesn't cost a lot. All you need is a champion in a position of authority to say, let's go down that road. And then I'm off to the races.
Yep. Yeah. You mentioned cost and, which kind of goes to, maybe ROI a little bit here. So I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because I as a huge buzzword, not on the human capital aspect, but on the business side, and that CFO type, hey, what's the ROI? So community type in hashtag ROI, which stands for return on investment for those who don't know. Okay, not everyone knows, right? But so here's the question for you, Ethan. How should leaders rethink employee ROI beyond productivity and performance metrics?
Man, softball, T, Babe Ruth.
Yeah, no, I'm throwing you one.
Ruth,
Yeah, exactly.
Babe Ruth. This is, if Rob asked $1 million question, this is the $1 billion question, right? This is part of my work, not only over the last 17 years, but since COVID. Every conversation I have is around my proprietary process for measuring and changing employee ROI. So if you're a CFO or somebody who looks at the numbers, your bean counter, your balance sheet, your income statement, your statement of cash flow, where do you see employee ROI? Nowhere.
No.
Why? Because employee cost is your largest expense. I am most engaged when I'm fortunate enough to have a conversation about culture transforming by rethinking mindset around employee contribution to the organization's success. People are not payroll. If you believe that, your company is dead, you just don't know it. People are your only lasting competitive advantage. That's why people are an investment. I have a human capital process I've developed over 17 years to measure and then unleash employee ROI. And I'm not going to bog down in the details, but you start with a mindset. The mindset is this: if I have a great strategy or a great competitive advantage in the market and I don't have the right people, I'm out of business. Mm-hmm. Similarly, if my goal is operational efficiency, I have the right policies, procedures, I know how to use EOS or dashboards or AI. But if you don't have the right people who are talented enough to leverage those, you're out of business. The only competitive advantage we have is people. How do I know that? Not only did I spend a decade researching it in my book, any person who says, yeah, I know people are important, but how do I measure or in culture? They have no excuses. We have 30 to 40 years of data that we've been gathering. We know from Great Place to Work that people who are happy and engaged are 8 times more productive. The data is there. You just need to be able to say, I'm afraid my company is going to go out of business. I know that culture is the driver. How do I get there? And then I'm ready to have a meaningful conversation.
I love that. And a big part of that, and you talk about culture. So I want to talk a little bit about trust because I think it's an important part of helping to create that trust. And look, I can see you, Ethan. You're like, okay, another softball he's throwing at me here. No, but seriously. So community, type in hashtag trust. So what happens to culture when trust replaces control?
Oh my God. Well, okay. So we have, Henry Ford to thank for that. So the modern 20th century command control organization is a vestige of the Industrial Revolution. So a few people on the top C-suite, a bunch of people in the middle, management, and then all the people who are getting the work done and feel the pain and are most contributing to the success of the organization, frontline staff, they're the base of the pyramid.
The corporate pyramid, yep.
Yeah, the corporate pyramid, which, by the way, is dying, thank God. Mm-hmm. So in its place is a flatter matrix organization, which I help re-architect, but the whole notion of trust is amazing. We know We know that when people feel like they can be their, to Rob's point, their authentic selves, when they trust the organization has their interest, when they trust each other, people engage more, they bring their authentic selves, they contribute more to the success, they come up with ideas to increase revenue and reduce costs. Like, the trust factor is so powerful that oftentimes if I get a senior executive who pushes back on me, I'll ask her or him or them, what can you explain to me about trust in your personal relationships? And they'll look at you and I'll say, no, seriously, in your relationships, let's say you've known somebody for 20 or 30 years that it took to build that relationship, a spouse, a sibling, a best friend, and you do one thing to jeopardize that trust. Does that sound realistic? Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Are you doing that to your people? Every time you conduct layoffs, by the way, I philosophically detest organizations who initiate layoffs. Have you done a layoff? Did you force people to come back to, going from remote to hybrid to full-time in office 5 days a week? Have you not given bonuses? Do you not have a coaching and mentoring program? Do you not have a formal employee idea generation program? How do you reward and recognize people? How do you praise them publicly or give them corrective feedback in private? Because every day that somebody like Rob's old boss speaks to him the way she did, you kill the trust and it cannot be returned easily.
Yep. Yeah.
Now,
wrap this up.
Go do it to your clients.
Just one quick comment, because I'm busting here. I wish we had an hour at least. But the whole idea that you're speaking to the leaders who are saying we want you to change our culture here. I'm sure that's the biggest hurdle. But when you said that the corporate pyramid is collapsing, and thank God, I think that's the big thing, because I've seen in this current time we're living in, I've seen people who start businesses from nothing, just themselves. And as soon as they hire employees, now the employees are cattle. Oh my gosh, they want to take a day off to go visit a family member. They can't take a day off for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so they're forgetting for some reason. There's something that happens there, Ethan, which I'm sure you work on. I've seen it happen. I'm happy that you're saying that they're flattening that pyramid, because when you start looking at people like a pair of hands, a bunch of cattle, minions, slave boat rowers, whatever,
assets,
then it's dead in the water, right?
Yes, well said.
Yeah. And I just want to comment, we got to close shop down, which is sad, because it's like we're just cooking with oil here, just getting to the scratch. So more reason, community, to reach out with Ethan. But you mentioned recognition, so important. I heard this phrase years ago, recognition. Babies cried for it, men die for it. It's like, it's so important to have that recognition, from people. And I've heard studies it's even more valuable than raises many times, extra compensation. So again, we're back to that humanity piece of it. But listen, we could go on and on. I only got to, I think, 3 of the 6 questions we want to ask you, which means we'll have to have you on again. But we appreciate you. So in closing, let me ask you this. I know you have something you want to bless our community with. So could you just tell us a little bit about that? I know Rob will post that for everybody, but please.
No, I think what you both are doing are so critically important, and for allowing me to come on and talk about the kind of things we're talking about, which are necessary in today's organization. I'd like to, anybody's interested in this, anybody wants to talk through strategically how to do some of this stuff that Rob and Steve were talking about, I'm happy to kind of waive my initial consult up front, just to give you an opportunity so that we can brainstorm strategies to do what they said in your organization. So thank you.
Absolutely. There'll be an email. There we go. That will be in the link, and we'll be posting. So you can go reach out to Ethan, email him, mention the Master Connector Show, and you get your complimentary. But thank you. And what's the best way you like our community to reach you, Ethan, please?
Oh, my friend, email ethan@thechazingroup.com, or even my website, thechazingroup.com.
Well, really appreciate you big time. Amazing. What an incredible asset you are. So just thank you so much. But we're going to have you go in the green room and as we close up shop here, but appreciate you, Ethan. Thank you. Wow. Okay, cool. Well, hey, so next week, same bad time, same bad channel, tune in. We got episode 244, January 21st, 1 o'clock EST. Human connection is your strategy with Nathan Schock. And there we are. We're on that human side of thing again, which is so important today, right? We're in such a digital world. The humanity, the human aspect, I think is so crucial today. And go to masterconnector.show to learn more about some of the next up-and-coming events, as well as how to be a sponsor, and or if you think you're qualified to be a guest on our show, go to masterconnector.show. But I want to finish up a couple things. Number one, my man, I mentioned it. We mentioned at the top of the hour. Robbie G has got a book out. It's an insightful new book called "Don't Fear the Brand." Reveals how he 4x'd his revenue while overcoming paralyzing fear. We talked about fear just earlier in the show. Get the inside scoop and exact strategies by clicking the link now. It's available on Amazon. I read his book. It's amazing. And, reading a book, dyslexia, that was hard, but it was so worth it. I highly recommend it. But I'm going to close down with a story. Listen, Paul Pullman redefined leadership as CEO of Unilever by prioritizing people, sustainability, and purpose over short-term profits, proving humanity and performance can coexist. By leading with empathy and long-term vision, he built trust across employees, customers, and community worldwide. Let's let Paul's example inspire you to lead with heart and serve others boldly. Because in the business world today, it's desperately needing you to shine your light. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives